So let me ask you a question. Do you like rights? Do you like having the ability to go to trial if you're accused of a crime?
Generally.
If somebody said you were an awful person for a very specific reason, would you like the ability to prove whether or not you really are that awful person?
Well, I guess that really depends, Am I a citizen?
All right.
Do I deserve that right?
Do you deserve that? Let's talk about it. That's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about something else today
Because some people don't deserve rights.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you, right? That's not a hot take.
Some people don't deserve rights. You heard it here first.
Like if you hear me out. Like on the topic of rights.
Right.
If right.
What?
Like beds, right? Is that a right? Do you have a right to having a bed? Like if you're a kid, should you have a bed?
I mean, yeah, in this country, yeah, if you don't, you get your kids taken away kind of style.
Do you?
Well, I mean, like,
because I know someone who hasn't, and they're very famous for not having beds for their kids. We're going to talk about that too.
Oh boy, we are loaded today with the controversy, huh?
Yeah, like it's going to be a controversy corner squared.
Yeah. Lots of controversial stuff going on today for sure.
Well, I guess welcome to Humor Highwire.
Yeah.
Intro cut. Okay, I'm not going to do.
What?
That's my favorite part.
What did you just do?
Like you just did a banjo twang.
That's staying in.
Yeah, I don't care. You can keep that in. I like that part of the music.
You want to know something that's funny?
What?
With the shortened version of the intro that I've been doing, that part might be cut out. I don't know.
Oh no!
I don't know though, because I don't know which part he's talking about.
That
do you
part
have that?
Probably
do you
cost
have that
me
saved?
like $15. That's like $15 of our budget in the toilet.
Hey, you know what? It was for the good of the pod, all right? But I mean, it's somewhere back in the host chat. I posted like a shortened version of the intro for you guys to listen to, and you guys were like, "That's good." So,
I don't think I actually listened to it.
I greenlit it without realizing that my favorite part is gone.
I have no words. This is literally beyond belief.
It might be. I don't know for sure. Okay, we're wasting time. The first thing we're going to talk about today in this episode is whether or not people in general should be allowed due process if they are accused of crimes and stuff in the good old US of A. So the story that I'm bringing to the table is recently a Fox News host suggested that we should get rid of due process for immigrants because it's too hard.
I'm willing to make a trade right now.
A trade for what?
Hold on.
So hear me out. I'm
boy.
willing to take up that. Like we can do that if also we take away due process for that whatever host that was.
Yeah.
I think it's a fair trade.
Well, I don't. Oh, so here's the problem with what you just said. You're talking about like one person versus like I think like 8 million people or something like that.
It's kind of like the 3/5 compromise
so,
rebrand.
I was about to say, how many people do we think? Okay, instead of going there, what we'll do is it'll be a 1-for-1. So for each Fox News host that gives up their due process rights, we'll take one away from an immigrant.
Yo.
It's approximately 22 million people at a minimum.
Wow, that's a good ratio.
Yeah, you'll get like out of 22 million people, there's like 15.
Souls are expensive.
Their souls are expensive? I don't know. Have you seen those
Think
hosts?
about no. Look at the weight. Look at the equivalency here on your trade.
I'll be honest. None of their hearts are weighing lighter than a feather. So,
This whole thing came about after the president, who is currently in the White House of the USA right now, deported a bunch of Venezuelan people who are allegedly gang members.
Tren de Aragua?
Okay.
I think that's the terrorist group's
Oh.
Tren de Aragua. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, I think that is accurate. Most of my sources just say TDA, so there's it threw me off. But yeah, so there's a whole slew of stuff that goes along with this, but the crux of the argument is that Trump decided that all of these people were part of a Venezuelan gang. They got rounded up and they were being deported to an El Salvadorian prison, and a federal judge was like, "Hey, you can't do that because they have rights." And now there's this whole like clash of whether or not they can do it or not, because the current administration is using the Alien Enemies Act to kind of skirt around laws to do what they want. But I've done some research on that, and it seems shaky at best. But we'll get to that in a second. The specifics of what this guy said. Let's see here. What is his name? What's this dude's name? What is this person who thinks people shouldn't have rights? His name.
John Cena.
Actually, John Cena said he would come on the show if we hit 10 million viewers.
Yeah, he did say that. So, John, we know you're listening, maybe even watching on the YouTube, which I got to tell you, our friends in Rwanda, we love you guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Just every episode now.
Hello,
Rwanda, we love
if
you.
you guys want to also hop over to the YouTubes, okay, there's some beautiful things happening with the thumbnails.
What? What are you doing to the thumbnails?
There's beautiful things happening. And if you want to check out those thumbnails, they're available only on the YouTube iterations of the episode releases. So
I really like how you're just super selling the thumbnails.
They're
nothing else about
work.
the podcast matters. Actually, it's just the thumbnails. The thumbnails are really good. The rest of the content, garbage.
The thumbnails are really bigly. They're really something special. People look at these thumbnails, they say, wow, those are thumbnails. Those are definitely thumbnails. They're extraordinary.
I think the guy's name's Jonathan Carl, is the host. I'm pretty sure that's his name. Because Tom Homan, Homan.
Tom Holland.
No,
not Tom Holland.
Tom Homan. He's
the
border czar. Yeah.
So Jonathan Carl was the Fox host in question, and the question that was posed that launched this whole thing was asking Haman, like, do you think you have the authority, the power to round up people, deport them, and then you're under no obligation to a court to show the evidence against them. This was asked of Trump, and he says, well, that's what the law says, so that's what our country needs. I'm getting all mixed up here. Where the hell is that? Oh, okay. So, gosh, I'm getting all mixed up, guys.
No, it's good. I'm enjoying this because usually, like, you're usually on it. And this is one of those times where I get to kind of, like, sit back and like...
This is like that moment in Avengers where, like, Thanos like showed up, and then like Star-Lord and Doctor Strange and Thor all like jump him, and it's all like going really well for a minute because like the big enemy is like stumbling for a moment.
Yes.
It's just like
Are we going back to the
that
like
was
I'm
so
the enemy thing?
incoherent.
it's just like
It's like sometimes you just go on these tangents, and I have no idea why.
it made a lot of sense in my head, and then I started talking. And I lost myself.
Okay, I got it. The guy's name, the Fox News host, is Brian Kilmeade. That's the Fox News host. That's his
A
name.
lot of great names out there.
Brian Kilmeade, enemy of the podcast.
Brian killed me.
Yeah.
Brian Kilmeade.
I feel like that was going somewhere. So yeah.
I found a picture of him. Oh my god. He honestly, like, I wonder what he would look like with 2 black eyes.
No.
He's 60 years old? Damn, he looks good for his age. Damn. What is he doing? What is he eating?
Editor, go ahead and put a visual of Brian Kilmeade on for those our Rwandan audience who are tuning into the YouTube version of the
our
visual
listeners.
Yeah.
So the quote is essentially when asked about like whether or not like these people should have due process and all that sort of stuff, that part of the response was, I think it's not practical to think that we can do due process for 8 million people. That's what he said. Now the whole controversy here is whether or not they should be afforded due process because of this really obscure act from like 1790 something, which I'll be more specific on. 1798, the Alien and Sedition Acts, of which there's like 3 or 4 of them. Only one of them is actually still like functional in law technically right now. But yeah, so the controversy here is that all of these Venezuelans were essentially rounded up and put on a plane and shipped off to a prison, and there is no current evidence that says all of them were affiliated with these gang members, or this gang in general. A lot of them apparently were arrested because they have tattoos. Not specifically like gang related tattoos, just they had a tattoo and they were Venezuelan. So
is this confirmed?
Yeah. There's been some reporting done where ICE agents were interviewed, and they have gone on record saying that they don't have definitive proof that everybody that was arrested is actually part of the gang.
Wait, who said that?
ICE agents.
ICE agents.
Yeah.
So ICE agents, the ones who they're the ones who are obviously
doing
their
doing the arresting.
So they're arresting, and which ICE agents are saying, "Oh, we didn't have proof." I just find it like incredibly hard to believe that we're gonna be out here just what do you call it? Oh my god, when like a police officer is like targeting
profiling.
I mean, profiling to an extent is okay, but like not when you're.
I mean, everybody profiles other people all the time, but when you're doing it in like through the lens of whether or not somebody is conducting criminal activity or is a member of a violent gang or something like that, you have to be very careful with how you do that. Department of Homeland Security was also involved in this, and they have basically said we can't reveal the sources of our evidence because that would mean that we're burning like our sources that are still part of the organization. But the problem with that is if you can't produce evidence that somebody is part of this association, this part of this group that you're saying is now like a terrorist organization or whatever,
Right.
then how can you say that they are? Like, that's not how this works. You can't just go, they're the thing because we say so.
Well, historically, this has been a problem in our country before, although not from the lens of ICE and extradition, but from the lens of addressing crimes in major cities. Specifically, this was a problem in New York, profiling with the NYPD in our countries, and it was a problem. It was a problem for a long time that went basically uncontested until probably the last like decade is when it's really started to be in the limelight due to a lot of political movements that have been going on recently. So it's not actually something that's crazy new to some of the law keeping things that we have in place in the country, that profiling like this can happen.
Well, I don't know. It's just a tricky subject because have we proven beyond a doubt that the Alien Act can't be used against them?
So I did some digging into this, and I looked into the National Archives, the website. I didn't actually go to the place and dig through dusty pages, but so I might be wrong. But the Aliens and Sedition Acts with an S. It's not a
Right.
singular thing. It's actually 4 different acts, and the very first one, it just establishes a uniform rule for naturalization. That changed from like the original in Constitution, how that works. But the next 3 are actually have things to do with how you deal with these individuals. 2 of them no longer apply. They essentially expired 2 or 4 years after they were passed, so in the early 1800s. But the one that is still technically in print is not the right word, but enforceable, I guess, is an act respecting alien enemies. So this is the one that they're using to say, we can just do this and send them off somewhere without having to let them have any due process or anything of that nature. But the problem that I have with this is in the very first section of it. I'll just read it off. Whenever there shall be a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, or any invasion or predatory incursion shall be perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States by any foreign nation or government, the President of the United States shall make public proclamation of the event, all names, so and so. And then it goes into like the fact that you can arrest people and send them off and all that sort of stuff. But the problem is in the very beginning of it, it specifies foreign nations or governments. A Venezuelan gang is not a nation or a government. And I think, Matt, you were talking to me a little bit about this a couple days ago when we were talking about this subject, and you said that the Trump administration basically decided that they were going to designate them as like a terrorist pseudo like criminal organization / state hybrid thing.
Yeah, so the gang, a couple gangs I think were included in this, but the one that I remember is Tren de Aragua, which is obviously what they're targeting mostly, and they were in fact designated legally as a terrorist organization.
But even still, this particular act that they are using doesn't read that out, though. There's nothing in here about terrorists. And even beyond that, there are amendments to the Constitution, which, I'm not a lawyer and I'm not a constitutional law buff or scholar, but to me, a act that was approved by Congress in the late 1700s should not hold more sway than amendments to the Constitution of the country. But there are two amendments that I am forgetting the specific numbers of right now, and I will look them up, that essentially guarantee the rights of due process for anybody, whether they're a legal citizen or not of the country, as long as they're in the borders of the United States. If they are accused of some sort of crime, whether or not they're a citizen or not, they have a right to due process. So I don't understand why we think this is okay. And then to have somebody turn around and go, this just doesn't make sense to have due process for 8 million people. It's just not plausible. And then it goes on, the interview and the segment for their show goes on, and they start throwing out a bunch of red herrings about, like, well, what about this person? What about this victim who didn't get due process? What about this victim who, was wrongfully murdered by a violent illegal alien? Where's their due process? So on and so forth. Essentially deflecting away from the actual question, the actual issue, where you're just basically going, yeah, people shouldn't have rights. Like,
yeah, I mean, the problem with logic like that is you can apply that same frame of logic to regular criminals. You can say, why should somebody have rights who's committed a murder because their victim didn't get any rights? If we're not going to employ that type of logic to regular criminals, then why should other human beings be considered any less deserving?
Exactly. That's the thing that's bothering me about this entire thing. It's the 5th and 14th Amendments, by the way. The 5th and 14th Amendments are what grant the right of due process. I think the 5th Amendment was specifically like the right for people to be able to have that. And then the 14th Amendment was adding in, like, regardless of where you come from, that's what you get to have that. Okay, so the specifics here, we can cut back in now. The specifics here are having to do with the 5th Amendment. The 5th Amendment specifically reads that no person shall be compelled in any criminal case to be witnessed against himself, be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. So it doesn't say no citizen of the United States. It says no person. So that applies to any and everybody who is within the jurisdiction of the United States. If you're accused of a crime, you have the right to due process.
At least according to our,
Constitution.
Well, also our interpretation of it, because we're not necessarily the right people to be sitting here and...
We're not,
no, but a federally appointed judge probably is.
That's one federally appointed judge. Just to play devil's advocate here a little bit.
Sure, but the thing is, like, this has been played out before. Like, this came up, I think, specifically, the case law came up with Chinese immigrants back when they were, like, building the intercontinental railroads. It's something that's been played out before, and it's already been a well-established legal precedent that regardless of whether you are a citizen of the country or not, you have a right to due process under the laws of the United States. The same thing applies if you're in a different country. Like, if you're in a different country and you don't, like, go through like a U.S. embassy, you're beholden to the laws of the country that you broke the law in. You know what I mean?
This is like a little bit of a tangent. Did we give due process to the people that we put in internment camps?
Nope.
Okay, just checking.
Yeah, the U.S. has done some pretty messed up stuff.
That was during wartime with, like, that was World War II. So I guess technically they could have they probably used the Alien and Sedition Act.
Well, again,
sorry.
Well, I mean, again, that most of those acts are no longer relevant. Like, they're no longer in effect. Like, the one of them was like, if you print things that say bad things about the United States, you'll be arrested. Like, it was to the point where we were getting ready to go to war with France for reasons. I don't know what it was specifically, but the acts were created during near wartime, and it was done because they were afraid that there was going to be sedition and rebellion within the country, because we were going to go to war with France, whom at the time of the revolution was one of our closest allies, and part of the reason, a big reason why we won in the first place. So it would be pretty reasonable to think that, yeah, maybe people will start, putting things in the newspapers saying, what's up, US? Why are we going to war with France? That's not cool. So they made a law that lasted a couple of years that said if you do that, you get arrested.
Well, from what I'm reading, actually, we did use the Alien Enemies Act to put Japanese people in internment camps. And that was in 1942.
And that was also incorrect.
Well, they
everybody, yeah, they did it.
They did it, and nobody got in trouble for it.
Well, yeah, sure. Okay, well, I'm just going to negate what I just said because people did get in trouble for that. But
I mean, define not getting in trouble for it. Yeah,
for internment camps. Do you think our past president, who was it? Was it Roosevelt? Right?
I don't recall.
I don't think
the point I'm trying to make right now is they're using this super obscure law from 1798 to go, we don't need to let these people have due process when it's the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution that everybody has the right to due process. And then some guy on Fox News goes, we shouldn't give them due process. They broke the law. But
there's part of me that kind of understand where that, I kind of understand where that's coming from though, because assuming we're basing off a lot of assumptions here. Because first of all, if we're just judging based on their tattoos, there's a pretty high chance that they're probably not part of that gang. People get tattoos for any reason.
That's the thing.
If they are part of this gang that's drugging, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend that it's only this gang that's selling drugs or whatever. But selling drugs is a bad thing, and if these people are actually doing that, fuck them. I don't like them. But despite that, they should get their due process. That's just how it goes.
Right.
If we didn't have that, everything's just if you don't have due process, people can just sit here and accuse you of anything and you would be fucked.
Exactly. That's the point of this whole thing. And that's why it was so hard to believe and controversial in the first place of you're saying this because you don't have to deal with the consequences of what you're saying. That's kind of been the problem with all of the stuff that's revolving around this particular issue right now, is the people who are advocating for things like no due process and just shipping people off to wherever they think they're from, regardless of whether they're actual citizens or not, are people that are not seemingly to them affected by the repercussions of those actions. And it's pretty messed up. It's beyond my belief, and it's very controversial. And I'm not sitting in a corner, but that's the corner that I'm in. It's messed up. Everybody deserves the right to due process.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little to say that it's just okay to strip away due process. Even if we're looking at the most,
you got people in this country who are literally mass murderers and bombers and domestic terrorists, and if they survived their encounters with law enforcement, they got a trial. So why can't these other people be afforded the same rights?
I'm not even worried about equality here. I mean, in a way I am, but I just don't think it's right that somebody should be accused of something and then not have the ability to to prove their innocence. Like that.
It's kind of like a fundamental thing that is part of our country's like lifeblood is you're innocent until you're proven guilty. You don't just get tossed in the gulag because you looked at somebody weird.
Like I'll say something that will probably like a lot of righties will probably understand if I put it this way, if they didn't before.
I'm scared.
So like think back to the Me Too movement, right?
Okay.
And I know this is a slippery slope, but like if we just assume that everyone that was Me Too'd was inherently guilty, and we know that not everyone that Me Too'd was inherently guilty. There are facts that say that not 100% of those people were guilty.
If we're assuming that, though,
yeah, if we're assuming that, and then we're like, oh, well, they're guilty, so fucking put them in jail. Like, that's a terrible thing, especially for those people who didn't do it.
Yeah. There's cases of people who have been wrongfully convicted all over the place. And, like, that's a whole other thing to get into. But at least they got their day in court. And the fact that these people that are being shipped off to a prison that's not even in this country is insane to me. And there should be repercussions for this, and it's disturbing.
There won't be repercussions for this. There's
well, in any case, if you are interested, listener, all of the links to the
there's more of them. All right, okay. There's a country of people who love our content.
My Rwandan friends. My Rwandan friends and anybody else who's listening, if you are interested in this story or want to read up on the Aliens and Sedition Acts or any of the amendments of the Constitution of the United States, all of those links and information will be posted in the show notes. So please go ahead and take a look and message us if you agree or disagree or want to fight me. I invite it all.
By the way, this podcast bears no political affiliation.
Yeah. All right.
Sure.
I know the statement. Allow me to put on my straighten up my bow tie here. The views expressed on Humor Highwire do not reflect the host's views, nor the business entity known as Humor Highwire.
Yeah, exactly.
This show is for entertainment.
We have to stand for something.
Well, you have to say that because, like, we're debating here. I'm playing devil's advocate. I mean, obviously, they can tell where we stand.
Sure.
But, like, if I'm sitting here trying to defend our actions of deporting people without due process, I feel like I at least have to say, these aren't necessarily my beliefs.
We'll do a static recording of that, and then we'll just put it in the little media section and play it whenever we say something that's politically controversial.
But I don't mind diving into like politics and stuff like that. Just, it's a touchy subject. So, understandably, if any of you are like pissed off or whatever, just leave a comment, email, let us know your thoughts. We'll read through them.
Yeah,
just make it coherent. Make it reasonable.
Write it in all caps. Don't just say write things wrong.
Don't all just caps. Say like you guys are idiots who don't know what you're talking about. Like give us some logic.
So if someone told me not to write to them to tell them that they're idiots, the first thing I would do as a member of the internet is probably email them and say, hey, you're all idiots. So you just did is tell them what to do.
Don't think about elephants, guys. Don't think about elephants.
Don't do that.
Well, that's all I have for this story right now. Like I said, everything is going to be linked in the show notes. So I hope you guys thought that was interesting. Justin, you have something about moms?
Eddie, it's time for the Controversy Corner.
Oh yeah. So let me change the pace a little bit. Let me set the scene and the steam. Okay. So it's probably about 10 p.m. right? You're like settling into bed for the night, like getting ready to go to bed. You open up TikTok, you're doom scrolling, right? You stumble across the live, and there's this like kind of like stumbly, poor hygiened woman on the screen who's like loudly eating Doritos and yelling at her kids in the background, and talking and making faces at the screen, and just generally looks like kind of abhorrent to pay attention to. But then you look at the viewer count and you notice that there are like thousands and thousands of people watching, and you're like, what is going on? What you are bearing witness to is the train wreck that is Ashley Trevino. And what I'm going to do today is educate you guys on this cultural phenomenon that's happening right now on TikTok. And we're going to sit here together and we're going to make a decision on whether or not this is content that is acceptable to be on the platform. So I have three windows that we're going to look at Ashley Trevino through.
Okay.
I'm probably going to shorten her to Ash. As a content creator, as a significant other, and as a mother, because she has made waves in the ecosphere of the internet through all of these. So let's start off as a content creator. The one thing that Ash Trevino is known for beyond all other things is that she is always live no matter what. And that statement is capitalized
what?
in my notes.
What?
I'm
Always?
not kidding. Almost always. Now the one thing I didn't find evidence of was sleeping, but she'll step out of the room if she needs to use the restroom. But beyond that, like, the live is still going while she's doing that. But beyond that, she's always basically in front of the camera. This means when there are issues with her three children, multiple of which who are still school age, she's 35, by the way. Multiple of these children are school age. Whether she's having intimate moments with significant others virtually, as has been evidenced multiple times via clips from her streams. By the way, fun fact about that is that one of her children moderates her streams.
Excuse me?
Yeah. Yes.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm confused. What?
Go
Is
ahead.
that a problem?
No. It's not a problem that the kid moderates the stream. The problem is that she stepped about a half a step out of frame so that she could engage in some fun little conversations with her at the time boyfriend. And you could hear him really engaging on the line while her daughter was moderating her chat.
How old's her daughter?
She is under 18.
There's a whole lot of things here that are on the not okay list.
Okay, well, that's bullet point one.
No.
So, let's keep going down this content creator list. Ash Trevino is dirty. There are...
What do you mean dirty?
I mean literally dirty.
Like Asmongold, or like
Asmongold, probably not as bad as him. There have been many sightings of bugs in her home. There has been one particular instance where she started a live like immediately when she woke up in the morning. This is very typical for her. But as she's talking on the pillow, there is a very clear and distinct visual of a bed bug walking across the sheet which she distinctly noticed. She turns the camera away to continue talking and kind of like what presumably looks like she's shooing it. But then as she turns back and it's out of frame, she flinches because the bed bug bit her. So she like didn't even get out of the bed when she bore witness to the fact that there was a bed bug in the bed with her. There have been roaches seen in her home. There have been bugs seen like crawling on her at moments on stream. Like that kind of dirty.
Who is watching this?
Thousands of people. She is
why?
got
I don't...
a huge following. They like watching train wrecks. People like watching abhorrent human beings on TikTok. She's very infamous on the platform for a lot of reasons. We're getting into it. This is some of the reason why people watch her, because they want to see this degenerate human being and they want to troll her and they want to watch her. And there's other pieces we're going to get into. We haven't even scratched the surface.
Is she considered a lolcow?
She's a lolcow equivalent. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, because
sure.
I know that's kind of like why, like if that's really why people are watching her, I guess that probably classifies her as a lolcow.
She is definitely the like a spiritual lolcow. Although she does have game. We'll talk about that.
I don't want to hear about that.
Oh, we're going to hear about it because it's a core pillar of who Ash Trevino is.
But I don't want to hear about her game.
Oh, we're getting into it. So, okay.
How do I opt out of this part?
You don't.
So, bullet point 3 for content creator. Ash Trevino has no shame. She will overshare things that probably shouldn't be shared live. She will talk about intimate interactions with significant others. She will, as I stated before, like she's engaged. There was a recording that she had her live going while she was utilizing something called a rose. If either of you are familiar with what that is.
No,
I can take a couple guesses. Though.
Yeah, it's something that women typically use, and it's kind of like a massage device.
My gosh, you're so like, it's something
I think you
like
could just
this.
say it.
Yeah,
I think
it's
you
a
can just
vibrator.
say what it is.
It's a vibrator, and
okay.
she used it off stream, or I'm sorry, off camera while streaming on TikTok Live.
I feel like that's like community guidelines, like hammer to the face. Like what's happening? I don't.
Yeah. That was clipped. That was shared all over. Again, child moderating chat.
How like?
And then this is probably the worst piece on the content creator one that I'm about to get into, which is her absolute lack of empathy. One of her ex-significant others, specifically her ex-husband, he's currently serving time as he is a murderer. He actually committed several murders, and she has been on live before with some of the victims, like children and spouses of her ex-husband. She was on live relatively recently with the daughter of someone that her ex-husband killed. And the daughter was visibly very upset at the start of the live, and because of how Ashley was conducting herself, and the daughter was feeling like her deceased father was being disrespected in the beginning, and so she started crashing out a little bit. And Ashley jumped out of the live with her, and then proceeded to go on a multi-hour rant about how her dad deserved it and deserved to be murdered.
Okay.
So yeah, that is Ashley Trevino as a content creator. I'll give you guys a second before I get into her other facets.
How is this person allowed to still be a content creator? I don't like what. How has she not been banned? There are people that talk about politics that get banned on this platform, and she's out here like, yeah, your father deserved to be unalived. Like, what is wrong with you? Why would you? Oh, okay. I'm done now.
I mean, she's horrible.
I mean, I know some political commentators that have said and done
horrible things.
Worse.
Yeah.
That don't get banned, specifically on Twitch.
Yeah.
They like
especially if they're golden children.
Yep. And then like they praise terrorists, call them anime protagonists.
Yep.
Not going to name any names here, but
no, certainly not. But
yeah,
if anyone fit a description like that,
I'm painfully aware you guys are talking about the same person, but I don't know who you're talking about.
Well, maybe we'll get into them sometime soon.
It's been like covered to death, and
yeah, it really has.
So,
all right. So that's content creator. Let's look at Ash Trevino as a significant other. We got a great segue here because we just talked about her ex-husband. First off, she's a hypocrite. Ash Trevino, one of her most notorious relationships. She's currently, or at the time of the relationship, she was 35. She actually got into a relationship with another TikTok creator who at the time was 19 years old. She was very intimate with this individual, and a lot of people were skeptical as to how ethical the relationship was. At the end of the day, it was legal, but where the hypocrisy comes to play is that in the aftermath of that relationship, and there was a lot of abuse that happened in that relationship. Both of them alleged abuse toward one another, and have admitted to it. Like, both have admitted that they were abusive toward each other. But she gave commentary about another couple that had I think it was like a 6 or 7 year age gap from the 20s to 19 years old, and how inappropriate that relationship was, which is obviously like beyond unfathomable considering that she was 35 at the time of dating a 19-year-old.
Yeah, okay.
She is also what we would label a tier 5 gooner. I've kind of gotten into this.
What did you just say? What does that mean? What are the... All right, can you break down what the tiers of gooner are?
Okay. So this is very simple.
He was ready for this question.
He
was ready for the question.
There are tiers of gooning. Okay. A tier 1 gooner. Okay. They're like they're a little thirsty about it, but
no, I don't know. That's why you're explaining.
Okay. Do you know what gooning is?
Kind of, I think.
Okay. Whatever you're picturing in your head, you're right.
Okay.
So a tier 1 is like, you're a little bad compared to the average human being. Tier 2, we're starting to go past the point where you can say a little bad. Now we're into the zone of like, do you go outside more than like 2 times a week? Do you touch grass? Once we get to tier 3, we're like, okay, at this point we're into the point where maybe we could consider rehab. Tier 4, we're now danger zone, like intervention level. Family probably needs to become involved. We need some serious help. And at tier 5, there is no saving you. You are beyond the scope of intervention. You are a deprived human being. There's something fundamentally wrong with you. And it is probably best if we all cut ties with you and isolate you from the world. Ashley Trevino, I would classify as a tier 5 gooner. This has been evidence. I think I've already pointed out some pieces of evidence toward this in terms of her even being unable to control, like waiting until she is off of live to engage in certain activities, even waiting and making sure that her children are not moderating her chat at the times when she's doing it, or even there have been moments where she has stepped back into frame to close her bedroom door while engaging in these kinds of things because she realized that it was just hanging open. Also while
no.
on live.
I don't
So,
understand. I don't
yeah.
understand.
But it gets better than that, because all of this is bad, but then the third piece, I always leave the worst pieces for the last, is that she has a certain affinity. She has an affinity for inmates and criminals, and she's been very vocal about this. Ashley Trevino loves, as she puts it, giving people a second chance, is what she says. She has been on record having multiple concurrent significant others who are in the system at once, who she will talk to on their smuggled in devices, while on live even, which has gotten multiple of them in trouble at points.
Yeah,
She has then courted them when they've gotten out of prison. She's lost significant others because she's basically like encouraged them to get onto TikTok after they get out so that they can follow her all day, and then, you know, they end up cheating on her from like getting a TikTok and getting on the internet. But the more disturbing thing is, again, she has children in her house.
How many kids does she have?
She has 3. And she brings these convicts frequently home. People who are, you know, like it's one thing if you're like, you found somebody who you think deserves a second chance, but when you're communicating that you have a clear affinity and you're vocalizing support for a murderer and saying things like, "Oh, I always have his back. I always have his back," and communicating that you like bad boys all the time, when you're bringing that kind of energy around your kids regularly, that speaks to something that could be more concerning. And that's who you are as a mother. And that's how I'm going to segue into my last frame of Ashley Trevino, which is her as a mother. This is where we get into empathy again. I mentioned this at the very beginning. Her children, as of last week, I haven't checked this week, as of last week, do not have beds. She will not buy like bed frames for them.
So where are any of these thousands of people watching this person? Where are they, and why aren't they calling CPS?
So she has had CPS called on her multiple instances of times, and her statement is always the same, which is that, you know, she beat that, you know, they didn't take her kids away, that she was found fit to be a parent.
How? What is the measuring stick that we're using for this? Like,
so
it doesn't.
I can shed some light as somebody who works with CPS frequently in my other hat, that the bar is unfortunately and depressingly very, very low for what it takes for somebody to be able to keep their children. And oftentimes for better, but in some cases for worse, the air of practice is to keep children connected with their parents as much as possible. So if CPS can find a way to keep kids in a house, they will. Period. And if CPS can find a way to dismiss a case, they will. period. It is very sad, but it is very true. I watch it every single day. I myself have to call CPS multiple times a month. And I watch this all the time.
It seems
So
very
it's not
counterintuitive to like
shocking. Yeah.
the entire point of that department. Like why even have it if your entire purpose is to try to figure out a way to not have to do the thing?
It's because of the developmental research. There's a lot of research suggesting that children develop best when they're with their biological parents.
And I think there's like a substantial amount of evidence supporting that.
Yeah, it's strong psychological research.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because like a lot of the like with the people that you call CPS on, like if you're calling for a good reason, and no doubt, like undoubtedly, most of the times when you personally call out, I'm going to assume that you have a pretty good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Like undoubtedly, those kids are having a really rough time at home, but they're like, unfortunately, the research says that it is better for them to be home and endure it than to be taken out and thrown into the shitty fucking childcare system that we have otherwise.
And that's the second piece is our childcare system as a country. I mean that's a whole other topic, but our childcare system as a country is subpar.
It's honestly shameful.
But anyway, let's not get too segued here. The other piece for her speaking toward her empathy regarding her children is her children. So recently, and by recently I mean within the last few months, Ash Trevino and her kids were brought to the Bop House. Are you guys aware of what that is?
No, you keep saying things like Bop House, Gooner Tier 5, and every time I'm just like, what does this mean?
I
and
work,
what was
I
the
work
Rose?
around. I work around the youth. I'm sorry. So the Bop House. The Bop House is a content creator house filled with specifically OnlyFans creators. So they were invited there for a podcast, and they went on the podcast. Ash Trevino and her kids. The host of the podcast was doing a hit piece on Ash Trevino and wasn't super upfront about it with Ash Trevino, so it was kind of controversial at the time. But when they went to the Bop House and spoke, one of the things that was brought up by the kids was that they kind of get bullied at school frequently for her and her activity on live, unsurprisingly. And she kind of expressed in that interview a complete lack of empathy for what her kids are going through. And it's gotten to the point where some of her kids are on homebound instruction or have even contemplated dropping from public school, have attendance issues because showing their face in the building leads to incessant bullying and inability to focus on schoolwork because of what they go through as a result of their mother.
I'm going to assume like she probably makes pretty good money.
She does. Yeah, she
makes
a lot of money.
Like the responsible thing, and I know we're talking about this person, so responsibility is not something they've shown in their actions, but the responsible thing would probably be to either put them in like, I don't know, a private school or like even like get someone to come to the house at this point.
Yeah. Well, that's what homebound instruction is. They would have tutors. The school would provide tutors to come to the house for them. But I mean, it's not healthy for development for them to be like isolated at home, bearing witness to the train wreck of a mom that they have all day. And not much else, you know.
It's bad for their like social development, but really are they in a spot where that even matters? If they're getting bullied like that badly at school, that can get real bad sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I think in their case, homebound instruction might be something they need.
Yeah, I mean those kids need a lot. Um, this is not even to speak on when the kids are at home. There have been instances that viewers have borne witness to, like, them being neglected so that she can entertain viewers. For instance, there was a clip recently. One of her children was like so sick, she was like uh, compulsively vomiting, and I mean, parents will know, or if you've like ever babysat and been there with a sick kid, you'll know, like, when your kid throws up, they get very scared if they don't know what's happening. And so her kid had that scared, like, "Mom, I just threw up" moment, and she looked back and like acknowledged it for half a second and then turned around, and she was like dancing for the camera at the time and just went right back to dancing for the camera instead of like helping address like the kid, to the point where, like, this last piece, role reversal is huge in that house, where one of the other daughters actually walked into the room and told her she had to get off live and be a mother to her child. It's like that degenerated at that point to where, like, the older daughter often is coming in and like mothering her and telling her when she shouldn't be talking about something on live, or needs to stop conducting herself a certain way, or needs to go mother a child because something's going on. So when her one child was throwing up and like profusely sick while she was dancing on her live and asking her child if the vomit smelled like nunu, which is Spanish slang for vagina, um it was it was a atrocious thing to bear witness to, and her child had to tell her that she needed to step it up as a mother. um so yeah,
It's just
that's
like beyond belief. But
yeah,
somebody play the laugh track.
yeah, except it's like it's the least funny thing ever. Like, it's funny, but it's like doing research on this human being just made me mad mostly.
No, I bet.
I mean, she's oh my god,
so delayed.
what the did that just, oh my god,
It took me a second to pull it up.
wow.
Yeah, that was the perfect placement for that, actually.
Yeah, I thought it was nice. I had it up and I was waiting for a second, and I was like, now's not the right time. Oh, there's a pause. Do the thing.
So I guess I wanted to give you guys a window to kind of react to that. It was a lot of information. I told you, so behind the curtain, I said it was going to be tough to cram it into a shortened segment, and that ended up being like 30 minutes. But
well, so was our first segment.
yeah, but
yeah,
I mean,
lots getting cut out of that. But I mean, honestly, it's infuriating. It's hard for me to have a coherent opinion about any of that because I'm, as a person, so far removed from any kind of content like that this is my first time ever hearing that there are content creators that like make their money by being essentially awful people, and to then have children in the mix of that and having them actively suffer because you're an awful person is infuriating. And yeah, I don't think I should comment anymore because I'll say things that are not appropriate for the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, there's very little I can say to really add to it. Clearly, this person is terrible, and I really hope that it's just like some sort of inside joke that their family has, and like they're just playing it up for the audience to make some money or whatever. I really hope that's the case, but it's just sad.
yeah. I mean, I don't see how it could be an inside joke is the thing, because when I say she's always on live, I mean like this woman is literally like always streaming. It's very rare that she's off. And she gets tons of views. A lot of people are just there to watch, and it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah.
It's that dark underbelly of always on content creation.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think it works out for most people that do that. There are very few exceptions. Being like that's really like terminally online. Being terminally online like that is terrible for mental health, for social development. It's just a bad situation, and it really makes you think: is that like again? She's making a ton of money. I would assume is that money worth it to really like the rest of her life is like kind of crumbling around her.
Yeah.
But the question is does she realize that? And if she does she care? Because right now, based on what you're saying, it doesn't seem like it. And that is the most frustrating part. It's the perception that she's aware that these things are happening and then just doesn't care.
Yeah. Her lack of empathy is something that encapsulates her across all facets of who she is as a person. It's who she is as a romantic partner. It's who she is as a content creator. It's who she is as a mother. So I imagine it extends to who she is in other aspects as well. And I would venture to say she probably doesn't care. I think there's a lot of evidence, and I'm not the only one to say this. A lot of content I've seen about her has said it. There's a lot of evidence to suggest that the only thing she really cares about is money and clout online, with this weird, like, whatever her idea of clout is that she's farming with this, because it's not good clout. But whatever it is that she thinks she's getting, that seems to be all that she cares about.
Well, what the worst part is, and I think Ian touched on this, is there like there's a ton of people who are literally just watching this happen and are helpless to do anything, but they're still watching. Like
Yeah.
they're feeding into it. And I'm sure like some of them are genuinely concerned, but like the reason she's making money off of it is because she's being watched. So the only real way to deal with a situation like this is to boycott the content.
The problem is a lot of it is teenagers. She first crossed my radar because, again, like I mentioned, I work with youth. A lot of my the students that I work with actually told me about her. That's how she crossed my radar in the first place.
Yeah, there are some lolcows I do genuinely feel bad for them. This is one that I don't feel bad for, and I hope she loses her platform.
Yeah.
I hope that there's some way. I'm not big on censoring creators like that, but in her case, she's being not only self-destructive, but also like she's being destructive towards her children and a whole host of other people online. I think her content is actually dangerous in many ways.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. So I just felt like she was a good subject for a controversy corner. So here we are.
This why is it so long?
It's 36 seconds long.
Every second is equivalent to like 5 hours of research. That's not true. It's the other way around. It's like every 10 seconds is equivalent to an hour of research.
What would... What... When would you ever put a 30-second...
Oh, there's a clapping one too, but I thought the cheering one would be better.
30-second cheering?
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
good.
you can cut it down, obviously.
I won't. The listeners want to hear that.
I don't think they do.
They do. They love that part. I'm gonna put it in the intro.
Oh, no.
What? No. Why would you do that?
Coming up in just 30 seconds.
Yeah, that's how it opens. That's how it opens. That's our new intro. You know that whole Humor Highwire intro that we have? We're
No.
replacing it. Well, anyway.
I'm just
Are
playing
these
with
available
things.
for the editing
Take
too?
the button away from him.
You can't. I don't know if they're available for the editing or not.
Oh my god.
Oh, they're saved as separate tracks. So yeah, if you
No.
play
Just-
things, in...
you can just put whatever you want soundtrack wise in the editing.
You
Yeah.
know what else I can do? And
but you can upload
enlightened
things
me.
to this and then actively like play them during the recording.
Ian enlightened me that I could make AI versions of ourselves saying whatever the hell I
No.
want.
Don't know.
Yeah, so be prepared because you guys are going to say some controversial things. Probably towards the end of the video so everyone can remember.
Yeah, so now, gentle listeners, every single time there is a new posting, you will know that I have personally proof listened to the entire episode before it launches because I don't trust.
Well, you know what's funny about that is none of them will know you said that.
I will put it in.
You won't be able to. It'll be gone.
Nope.
Suddenly. Suddenly, somehow, I've been given this extreme power to do anything I want.
Well, that was Humor Highwire.
Welcome to Humor Highwire.
I hope you guys enjoyed
I like
this.
trend where every episode is getting like 5 to 10 minutes longer.
Yeah, we need to figure that out.
I think it's fine.
Well,
More content is better than not.
Yeah. Well, in any case, I hope you guys enjoyed the discussions we brought to the table this time around. And,
A little more serious.
Yeah, a little bit more serious. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week.
Or don't.
Bye. Not, you should. Yes, they should. All right. Goodbye.